followthemoneydaily.com. We are recording this webinar that'll be able to be played back, and we'll be putting that on our archives for all of our partners and all of our members. You can be clued into that later on. All right, let me go ahead and do a double check here and just have everyone type in a Y into their box to make sure that they can hear my voice as I speak. Just type a letter Y. Charlene, I see you. Thank you. Okay, David, Myron. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Now, John, I'd like for you to come on the air and just briefly say something, and we'll make sure that they can hear you as well, and then we'll get things kicked off. John, can you come on and speak?
Okay. Well, I am glad to be here tonight, and I thank everyone for taking some time to be with us and to learn a few things about some retirement strategies that maybe you haven't thought about before.
Excellent. If you can hear John, go ahead and type a Y into your box, and we'll make sure. Okay, here they come. Excellent. David, Jennifer, Sharon, D, great. All right, we're going to get things kicked off. We've got a lot of great information for you as we get this thing moving. Looking forward to sharing a lot with you tonight. First of all, this is the June 2010 webinar for Follow the Money, and it's called The Retirement Time Bomb, Overcoming 7 Financial Landmines that can destroy your retirement. Those of you who missed our major announcement, you can be sure to do that. Go back to the archives, all of our members. You can find out about that. Last June 3rd, we talked about that. Also, check out the new ftmdaily.com. All kinds of goodies there for you each and every day. Retirement. I found this earlier on the web. I thought it was kind of cute because you've given so much of yourself to the company that you don't have anything left we can use, kind of like a used up pencil. Retirement. Is that what retirement is all about? Is that really what retirement is? We're going to talk about retirement strategies tonight. I also found this to be kind of cute. Many of us have lost our confidence in the markets over the last several years. I'm sure I'm not speaking alone. Here's a great definition of confidence: the feeling you have before you understand the situation. Many of you remember the before and after there with Barack Obama. Remember how completely confident that man was as he strutted along. And then I remember literally seeing him after the NSA meeting where he went in and talked to the National Security Administration, and the look on his face, just like every president. They go in and they find out, holy cow, I'd had no clue all this was going on. Oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? You could not pay me to be the president of these United States of America. What a massive responsibility that must be. But I thought that was kind of cute. Many of us have lost our confidence as we look to the financial markets. Many of us have lost confidence in even the ability to retire. Many of us are concerned about our ability to fund our retirement. How in the world are we going to be able to do all this, especially when we see the tsunami of inflation, the tsunami of taxes, the tsunami of interest rates, the falling housing prices, the very volatile stock market? What a crazy time to be alive. Tonight we're going to be discussing 4 main things. Number 1, we're going to introduce our financial philosophy. We've talked about this before. We're going to cover it briefly. I never have had time to go through the whole financial philosophy, and that still continues tonight. However, I will clue you into some new ideas about our financial philosophy, and I really do believe that you're going to benefit from this. We're going to discuss the idea of biblical investing. We're going to be talking with John Burrs. He's a Christian Financial Advisor Network advisor with our network. He'll be discussing what biblical investing is, what the Bible has to say, possibly, about the market as we move forward. You won't want to miss this. He shared this revelation with me, and I thought it was very interesting. You need to hang tight for this. We're going to finish by discussing not only the financial landmines that threaten each of our financial futures, but also solutions. I hear everybody saying amen. I mean, the problems are all over the television. The problems are all over your radio. What are the solutions? We're going to talk about some solutions tonight that you can take to protect yourself. Let's talk and get right into our financial philosophy. I think that every single financial plan and every single individual needs to understand the value of charitable giving, and that's why we put it first. Charitable giving comes first. So let's lay out our financial philosophy. Number one is charitable giving. Number two is protection. And number three is saving. And number four is investing. Boy, how we get the cart before the horse on this many times. Many of us want to go straight to investing, and then we worry about saving, and then, we'll worry about protection, and then giving. Well, we'll give over whatever's left. You know, you don't even have to be a believer in the Bible to understand the value of charitable giving. Even unbelievers throughout history have found the value of giving, and giving is so completely vital to a good, solid financial plan. I saw that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates are encouraging billionaires that are on a big new campaign that they're going to be launching to get billionaires all over America to give half of their money away to charitable giving. It's powerful. It's a very powerful thing. To whom much is given, much is required. And those of us who have much, or those of us who have little, it doesn't really matter. We're all charged to be a giver. And in giving, I don't know about you, and I certainly don't give to get, but I have seen in my life the difference that giving makes in my financial life. I know the times when I haven't given, I've struggled. And the times that I have given, it's not that God's a magic genie in the sky. It's not that you rub the lamp and you ask for the gift. But instead, what it is that you're honoring God with your giving. And when you do, God honors that right back with you. And so giving becomes the foundation. It becomes the bedrock of a solid financial plan, a giving heart. Second is protection. And we'll talk about these each individually. And then third is saving, and fourth is investing. Here we go. Protect. Obviously, the giving is the foundation, so we're going to go and move past that. We're not going to talk about giving tonight, but instead we're going to talk about the three components. Protect, number one. Save, number two. Invest, number three. Now, how often do people reverse that? How often do they go, I want to invest first, and then I'll see about saving some money, and then eventually I'll get some protection. What does protect mean? Well, we'll discuss what protection means in just a minute. But it's very ironic how the typical financial plan tends to go. We are born and we're told to go to school. So we go to school, we learn like good boys and girls. And then we find ourselves being told to go to graduate from college, go get a college degree. Some of us have the benefit of doing that. Some of us don't. But then we move on to college. And then the next thing we know is we're looking in the paper and we are looking for jobs. And so we have the opportunity to go sit before the grueling interviewing board, and they decide to give us a job, and so we become a new hire. And then our crazy uncle comes up to us and says, my gosh, did you hear about your 401k? You've got to get involved. Now, listen, this is the typical financial plan. This may not be how you were raised. This may not be how you came up. But this is a very typical financial plan for many Americans. So your rich uncle or your crazy uncle comes up to you and says, look, you've got to get inside of what? That 401k plan. Look, you're 25 years old. You have no business being in a 401k plan if you have no savings. Here we go. We're investing first. And this is the typical financial plan. So we get into our 401k. How come? Well, your crazy uncle says because stocks always go up. Boy, I tell you what, if I could hear everybody in the crowd right now, I'm sure I would hear boos to that. Stocks do not always go up. But your crazy uncle tells you that he does, and Dave Ramsey says max out that 401k. Just max the sucker out, put 15% in and max it out to the hilt. So you find yourself busted and broke. Right? You get your paycheck at the end of every week, and you've given all your money to the 401k plan that you save, and just you pat yourself on the back and realize that you're saving. But, everybody around you is buying a house, and you say, I need to get a house too because I don't want to rent for the rest of my life. And so you realize that you don't have any money because how come? All your money's tied up in what? A 401k plan and all the bills that you have going on, probably some credit card debt as well. Then your crazy uncle. Oh, you decide to go to your crazy uncle because he helped you with the 401k, and you say, look, I am just flat broke. I want to buy a house. And he says, look, I can't help you. But, crazy grandpa probably can. Grandpa's going to help you out. So we go to grandpa, and grandpa gives us a loan, and the next thing you know, we get the keys to the house, and then we find out that we don't have any furniture. Oh, dear. So what are we going to do? We're in a house, but no furniture. Well, let's go to our savings account. Whoops, Dave Ramsey told us to what? Max out our 401k. We have no savings, do we? So what? We look in our pockets and we find out we have no savings. Well, we go down to the furniture store, and guess what? They have financing available. And guess what? No credit check. Absolutely positively, anyone can get a loan here. Can you fog up a mirror? Absolutely you can. So you walk out and you fully furnish that home. Oh, your crazy uncle, he's now he's telling you that he's earned all kinds of money by playing in the stock market. And he urges you to go get involved and to mess around with some stock trading and some do things like this. Pretty soon we find out that our financial lives are not led by us. They're led by a multitude of various opinion, sales hype, things that we see on TV, all over the place on the internet. I mean, it's confusing. What do you do? None of us are taught this in school. So we get out there and we realize, what are we supposed to do? When do we get it? Do I need a will? Do I do a Roth, or do I do a traditional, or do I do my 401k? Do I need life insurance, term or whole? Do I need to invest in bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, gold, silver? Is gold too high? Is silver too high? Do I need long-term care? Do I need a will? Do I need a trust? Who needs a trust? Should I open my own business? Should I do real estate? Oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. It's completely overwhelming. And the problem is with this typical financial plan that most people travel, they have no savings. They have no protection from unforeseen events. They're dependent upon one job. And they have no financial education, or as Robert Kiyosaki likes to put it, they have a low financial IQ. But the biggest problem is that they have no plan. They have no clue what they're doing. They're moved around with every whim. The TV guy says they should buy this. The radio guy says they should buy that. Their financial advisor, if they have one, tells them they should do this. Their accountant says that they should do that. Your accountant, those of you who have an accountant and an attorney and a financial advisor, how many times have those three men been in the same room? They're all your advisors. They should have meetings because they're all advising you. Your attorney has no clue what your accountant's telling you to do, and your accountant has no idea or clue what your financial advisor's telling you to do. Many of us have no plan, and those who are helping us are simply there to take money from us. That's why it's astounding that out of today's 65-year-olds, 95% of them are dead or dead broke. Only 5% reach a place of financial independence. 54% are dependent upon friends, family, federal government. 36% are still working. 5% are dead, 4% are financially independent, and 1% are wealthy. Oh, 5%. All of these things that we do. Look at all of these products we talk about. Why is it that we can all get invested in all of these things, and we can do all the right things according to the financial advisors, and we can max out our 401k, and we can do all these things, but we don't seem to get ahead? How is it possible that only 5% of Americans who reach the age of 65 actually have enough to be considered financially independent? That's, by the way, from the Department of Health and Human Services, that chart. Why do only 5% succeed? I would probably suggest to you that the number one reason is people lack knowledge. I don't think it's because they don't care. There really are 4 reasons, but I don't think the number one reason is because they don't care. Many people do care. They strive to know what to do. They just don't know what to do. They don't have the knowledge. Number 2, people are comfortable with the status quo. Number 3, they're lacking confidence. And 4, they don't care. But I would suggest to you that it's a lack of financial knowledge that holds people back and causes the confusion and causes people to listen to anyone regarding the economy, anyone regarding the financial realities or illusions that surround us. So back to our foundation and our financial philosophy. Step number one is to protect. If we won't put the cart before the horse, if we will protect our assets, income, and life before you need it. Why? Because, friends, there are no do-overs. There are no do-overs at all. There is absolutely positively nothing that can be done once you die. You can't go buy life insurance after you die. You can't get into a massive wreck and then go get full coverage on your car. You can't get disabled and then go get disability insurance. You can't get into a nursing home and then buy long-term care. You can't die, then go buy a will. You can't get sick, then go get health insurance. Well, if you do, it's going to cost you a bundle. When's the best time to buy life insurance? 6 months before you die. Everybody knows that. Problem is, when are you going to die? There are no do-overs here. You see, you can put money into the market and you can lose 20% in a year. You know what? You can recover. You go out there without a will. You go out there without disability insurance. You go out there without life insurance. You go out there without auto insurance, health insurance. You are totally exposed. You're out there building something that is completely at risk. Who in the world would build a castle and not put a moat around it? Who in the world would do that? Protect your assets and income and life before you need it. Assets include your home, auto, and liability. I think every investor should have a liability policy. Talk to your auto insurer. I pay $300 for $1 million policy. It's an umbrella policy. It covers me for a number of things. It kicks in over the auto and home. Liability, it's cheap, $300. Many attorneys I know call it the steak, that the piece of meat that keeps off the Dobermans. When the attorneys come after you, you throw out a liability policy, and that satisfies them in the event that you get sued for some reason. Income, your largest asset that you have is your income producing ability. If you earn $50,000 a year and you're age 30 and you're going to work another 30 years, that's $1.5 million. If I handed you $1.5 million, how would you protect it? Would you just lay it out and say, well, I hope nobody go gets it? No, you would protect it. So protecting your income, your medical, your long-term care, obviously Social Security, checking out those statements when they come in, and then obviously your life, your human economic life value. What are you worth? Taking care of a will and a trust. So that obviously comes first. Many people put that last. And boy, I can't tell you how many people, and you know too, who have been bankrupted because of a bad medical bill, bad hospital bill. So number one is protect. Number two is to save. Save 15% of your income. Now, we've discussed this before as to why 3% inflation, 3% taxes, 3% planned obsolescence, 3% technological advances, 3% deferred expenditure, all kinds of eroding factors on money. Our savings strategy that we talk about is something called DSL, Diversified 6 Months Liquid Savings Reserve. We advocate one-third, 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 one-third in U.S. dollars, one-third in stable foreign currencies, and then finally a third in precious metals or other highly liquid hard assets. And we have demonstrated that if you would hold your savings in this way, in fact, in our last Follow the Money quarterly newsletter we put out how to inflation-proof your savings. We did studies on this, where if you would held your money in this way, the way we've described, you actually would have earned money over a 5-year period from 2004 to 2008, whereas you would have lost money due to inflation. Here's a 10-year study showing what it did. And people say, well, gold and silver have been rip-roaring for the last 10 years. Well, look at a 15-year study. Again, you can see that this far outdoes because of diversification. Diversification is key. We don't just teach diversified savings, we teach diversified investments. We don't just teach diversified savings and investments, we also teach what? Diversified income. Not just having one job, but actually having a number of streams of income. You can retire with 11 streams of income according to financial advisors. Most people retire with 2. Social Security, and their 401k. Step number 3 is to invest. And when it comes to investing, the way we view it is diversify, diversify, diversify. That is our philosophy. That is our approach to investing. There's really 3 different areas: income, growth, and tax sheltered. Income would include things like bonds, dividend paying stocks, fixed annuities. Growth would be things like stocks, ETFs, which are really pretty cool. Variable annuities. Many of you have discovered variable annuities. Variable annuities have done very well over the last several years with all the volatility. And then tax sheltered areas. People like to own real estate for tax benefits. Precious metals, how is that a tax shelter? Well, there's not a lot of reporting requirements with it if you talk to someone who knows their stuff. And in your own business, one of the biggest things that the government, or as we say, Caesar, really benefits for you is owning your own business, starting your own C corporation, your own LLC, your own S corporation. And that's something really to consider because it provides you a lot of tax sheltering. Here's the goal in investing. We boiled it down to a sentence. Here's our goal: to grow your investment capital with the highest possible rate of return, with a strong emphasis upon strategies that reduce risk and limit tax exposure, to ensure a steady flow of multiple streams of income that you cannot outlive. That is the goal in investing. Let me repeat it one more time if you're writing it down. To grow your investment capital with the high. Now notice I said investment capital, not your savings, because you're going to have savings and you're going to have your investing. And many people confuse the two. Saving and investing are 2 different things. Your savings, you're going to build up a 6-month liquid diversified pool of capital, opportunity capital that you can use. And then you're going to keep that 6-month liquid capital at all times. And after you do that, then it's time to invest. So you're going to protect yourself, you're going to save, and then you're going to start investing. And when you go out to invest, you won't have to hit a home run every single time. You know these guys who go out there and they have to day trade, or they have to make a great return on every single thing they do? Why? Because they're broke. They don't have any money. If you have a 6-month diversified liquid savings account, you don't have to hit a home run every single time you get into the market. You can make you can make 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6% in a year, and you're happy. It actually causes you to proceed with more wisdom by having savings. There's much profound wisdom in having savings. The Bible tells you that we should go to the ant in Proverbs 6. It tells us that we should save. The goal in investing, let me repeat it one more time, to grow your investment capital with the highest possible rate of return. Now, everybody likes good return, but with a strong emphasis upon strategies that reduce risk. Now, when you reduce risk, you reduce your rate of return, but reducing risk is even more important. And limiting tax exposure. Boy, that's a big one. To ensure a steady flow of multiple, notice that word, a steady flow of multiple streams of income that you cannot outlive. That is the goal in investing. That is where we want to be in the long run. All right, just time for a quick commercial before we bring John Burrs on. John, get ready. We have a webinar that was produced in April. It's a 90-minute or maybe even 2 hour, I think it's 90 minutes, with Tom Cloud, our precious metals expert. Precious Metals 101, what you should know. Great webinar. This thing sold like hotcakes when we put it out. Only $29.95. You can call 918-827-2400. You can get a download to it to your computer. You can watch the whole thing over and over, share it with friends and family. You can also go on to ftmdaily.com and buy it. $29.95, Precious Metals 101, what you should know, myself and Tom Cloud. And now let's move on to bringing on our guest. We have a very special guest who is part of the Christian Financial Advisor Network. It's a network we've built that helps people understand the times. People who are looking for a Christian financial advisor, that's exactly what CFAN is all about at cfanetwork.org. John Burrs is a tax and retirement specialist. Mm-hmm. The Christian. I hear you, John. Are you there?
I'm here. Okay. I'm here.
I hear you in the background there. John's a tax and retirement specialist with the Christian Financial Advisor Network. He has been helping clients and financial professionals understand financial strategies for 24 years. John, you've been in the business for 24 years.
24 years. Yep, coming on in July here will be my 24th year doing this. Well, it's kind of exciting from the standpoint when I first started doing this, I was told that the average financial advisor lasts 2 years. And so now going into my 24th year, I'm kind of excited about the fact that I made it past 2 years.
Yeah, there is a big failure rate. Well, I'm very happy to turn things over to you. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say about the markets, about what you see going forward, and also definitely with the biblical worldview on investing. So, John, feel free to take it away, and I'll just chime in as we go. And friends, let me remind you too: if you have questions along the way, type those into the question box. I'll be monitoring that as we go. So just feel free to type in your questions there. Okay, John, feel free to go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And again, I just want to thank everybody for taking some time to visit with us this evening. And I always like to start out when we talk about investing with what I believe is what my biblical worldview is on the future of investing. And I always like to start with Matthew chapter 24 and also Mark 13. And if you're familiar with those passages of Scripture, you'll notice that's the Olivet Discourse, where Jesus went to the Mount of Olives and he met with his innermost 4 disciples. It was his inner circle. And they sat down and asked Jesus what would be the signs of his coming again. And I understand that this dialogue is for the Jews, and Jesus was speaking to the Jews here, but I think the rest of the world can take away a lot of information from these answers and apply them to today's financial environment. Now, I understand that Jesus never said during all of Matthew 24 that the financial markets would go bad. However, all of the signs that he did talk about are indirectly tied to the financial markets. So I wanted to start with, let's just go through a few of the signs that he gave those 4 disciples. Well, the first one, and also the last one, if you read down to the end of the package, was deception. And basically he said, do not be deceived. And you see it on the screen. And Jesus answered and said to them, take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name saying, I'm the Christ, and will deceive many. So deception is going to be a key thing as we get closer to the return of Christ. And one of the things that I remember Jerry talking about this at one of the earlier webinars, where he talked about man was never capable of ruling man. And in our financial markets, have we not seen that over the last several years? Man is just not capable of man. Look at all the deception. Just check out and just follow the news. You will notice every day there are more and more deceptions of man when applied to the financial markets. And it really doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that deception is in every part of the financial markets. People are filled with greed, lawlessness, and they will do whatever it takes to make a buck. So it goes all the way from governments to financiers to the bankers, and it just goes on and on and on. And again, we see the headlines every day. Somebody did something with somebody's money, and then they're getting in a lot of trouble for it. So it just doesn't seem to stop, and we find that these people are continually manipulating the markets so that they can make more at the expense of the average person. Then, as we move on into verse 6, it talks about wars and rumors of wars. But then it also says, but the end is not yet. Again, every day in the news, you see that we constantly have wars and rumors of wars, especially pertaining to the Jewish nation. So the question I have to ask is, does the financial markets react to wars? And does it react when there are rumors of wars? Well, sure it does. And we we see how these financiers have manipulated so many wars through history just to be able to make $1 here and make $1 there, and really it's more like billions. But the point is they use wars and they use rumors of wars to help manipulate the market, and that brings us right back to the first sign, the deception of man. And we see how these financiers all through history have actually manipulated the markets. Then it goes on in verse 7 and says, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdoms, and in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. And then in verse 8, but all of these are merely the beginning of birth pangs. So what can we take away from all of this? Well, first of all of these signs have to happen at the same time as we get closer to the return of Christ, and they are. Secondly, if we understand what birth pangs are, and you ladies will identify with this, the closer we get to Christ's return, these signs will become more frequent and intensified. So all of these signs indirectly affect the way that the financial markets move. And I believe that with more frequency and intensity of these signs, that you will see the financial markets become more volatile. And that's a real important word. What is volatile? What does volatility mean? Well, simply, you will see bigger swings in the financial markets, and that means not only downs, because I think a lot of times we get so worried about hearing all the news that we think the markets are just going to go down, but they'll also go up. Volatility means wide swings, ups and downs. And for some of us older folks, we can think back to when we were younger, and I remember when the Dow Jones would move 10 points in either direction. Everybody thought that was major volatility. Well, let's fast forward to today. What are we seeing? We're seeing more frequency and intensity of these signs. As a result, it is not uncommon for the Dow Jones to move 300 to 400 points in any direction. Hang on here just a second, Jerry.
Folks, he's still there? Oh, okay, we'll be right back with John. I think some of the things.
Okay.
Yeah, John.
I'm back. I'm sorry about that.
It's not poppy, though. I mean, we're in the middle of a webinar. People can't stop calling you. It's amazing.
But I'd like to go back on and start back with the volatility, because I think that is important. And volatility, just to define it again, is simply more ups or wide swings of ups and downs in the market. It's not just straight down. And so volatility does mean the different swings. And again, when we were younger, 10 points in one day going up or down, we thought that was volatile. But now look at it. Look at it today. We're getting 300 and 400 point swings in one day. And as we see that, look at the difference of that kind of volatility. But why is that? Because I believe that we're seeing all of these signs. They're all affecting the financial markets, and we're getting closer to the Lord's return. The closer we get to the Lord's return, the more volatile the markets will become. And then it goes on into verse 9, and it says, and then I will deliver you to tribulation. Now remember, Jesus is talking to the Jews here, and this is where the tribulation period starts. And once the tribulation period starts, I like to jump to the book of Revelation, because that gives us some real detailed information of what will happen. And I'm going to start with chapter 6, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail here just for the sake of time, but chapter 6 is where all of the judgments start. And without going into a whole lot of detail, the common theme is that they become more intensified from one judgment to the next, and then to the next, and so on. And so as the next judgment comes, it becomes more intense. So will these judgments affect the financial markets? Absolutely they will, because we see after all of the judgments have been poured out, that once we get to Revelation 18, we see that the great city of Babylon which is the world financial center at that time, will have been laid waste. Verse 19 of Revelation chapter 18. It will take God only 1 hour to take everything that is considered valuable, to include even gold and silver, and lay it to waste. The rich men will weep and howl and cast their silver into the streets, and their gold will not deliver them from the judgment. And you can find that in Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 19, and Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 18. So I believe that the longer the Lord tarries, the more volatile the markets will become. So what should your goals be for your finances during the volatile times ahead?
I think that's a really good point, John, because many people are wondering, what getting the goal, I think, is probably one of the biggest parts. And let's talk about the 5 planning goals for retirement.
Okay. The first one, and I believe this is important because, again, we're talking about volatility. And people that have already have assets, the first goal they should have is to preserve the principal. Make sure that we are good stewards of the assets that God has given us. And that should be the first goal, preserve what God has given us. The second, since we're going to see more volatility, we need to take advantage of the markets when they go up, but we certainly don't want to participate when the markets go down. And I always like to tell people, I've been doing this for 24 years, and my philosophy when it comes to investing in the market is real simple. I personally like it when the market goes up, and quite frankly, I really don't like it when it goes down. And it's amazing how many people agree with that. And I'm sure there's people listening right now that are saying, yeah, I kind of like that thought.
So Warren Buffett had the old quote. He said, don't lose money. That's the goal. And that's how you, they say, how did you become so rich? I didn't lose money. Now, that's not true lately. He's lost a lot of money lately. But that was one of his old adages, don't lose money. And many people don't understand that missing the downs is more important than getting all the highs. Many people feel like they have to, hit a home run. They got to find that stock. They don't understand that if they'll just consistently get a decent return, as opposed to trying to go for the home run, if they'll miss the down, that will tremendously help them as they go forward, John.
Well, I'll tell you what, I did just a kind of a quick review of the S&P 500 since it started, and here's the common thing that I noticed. Almost every 10-year period, if you look at it, there was 7 up years, 3 down years, until year 2000. And then once year 2000 came along, all of a sudden we had 5 up years, 5 down years. Why do you suppose that is? Well, personally, I have to go back to my biblical worldview. We're getting closer to the return of Christ, and there's going to be more volatility. Now, again, that doesn't mean downs, because there were some up years there. So the point of it is we need to take advantage of the market when it goes up, and we need to not participate in the down years. And a lot of people say, I'd love to do that, but how do you do that? Well, we definitely have some strategies of how we can make sure that happens. And so, that to me is the number 2 goal. And then the third goal that I have, and I think people should have, is they need to understand that the assets they have need to be able to be turned into income streams. And you mentioned this earlier, Jerry, that it needs to be turned into income streams that you cannot outlive. And if you're married and listening to this, my recommendation is to turn it into an income stream that, as long as one of you are alive, you're still getting that income. So guaranteed income streams are very important, and we can use our investments to do that. Because once we actually start taking the income, it's not a matter of how big the asset is, it's how much income is it creating. Because you know as well as I do that if we come into some hard times and, let's say a depression, what was the most important thing during the depression? Was it the assets people had, the things they bought, the things they owned, or was it the income streams that they could create?
That's right. Right. I, as I've said over and over, John, I'll trade my cash for cash flow any day of the week.
Absolutely. And you know the old adage, cash is king.
Sure.
And during the tough times, it really sticks out in people's mind. And you know, look at just now. Look at all of the unemployment that's out there. You don't think cash is king to those folks right now? Absolutely. And so, you know, in a retirement stage, when you're not out necessarily working and earning an income anymore, especially at that point, you have to be concerned with creating income streams that you cannot outlive. So that's the third thing. And like I said earlier, I've been doing this 24 years, and what I have learned, and almost my entire career has been working with people that are you know, within 10 to 15 years of retirement and into retirement. And the one thing that I know from the retirees is that a lot of them do worry about running out of assets that's going to create their income. And so why not plan ahead to create income streams that you can't outlive? So that's the third goal. And then the fourth goal we have in our financial planning is after you and your spouse pass away, then we want to be able to make sure that whatever assets you still have will pass on to your heirs with the least amount of loss to taxes, probate, creditors, and nursing homes. And then our fifth goal, and this one is becoming more and more important, and especially for those of us that want to be good stewards of what God has given us, is to continually keep educating yourself. Make sure that you are making good, informed decisions. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. You know, I've been so impressed just with already with the Follow the Money. You know, folks, you can sign up and get the quarterly newsletters. You can follow Jerry's Follow the Money radio show that he has every week. Stay tuned to his webinars. And, you know, there's good books out there. There's just good learning materials. But education is real important. Make sure that you teach yourself. And like Jerry said earlier, we really don't learn that in school. And unfortunately, we get a lot of advice from people that really don't have good advice to give. And as a result of that, it's important to spend some time. And I always get a kick out of one of the things I've always heard, and that is that most people spend more time planning for their vacation than their financial future.
Oh, yeah, or picking out a fridge. They spend more time picking out a fridge than planning their retirement.
Yep. So those are the goals that we have, and I believe that most people are starting to learn that these goals are very important to achieve to be able to have a successful retirement.
Well, we want to talk about the retirees then and now. A lot of things have changed, John. I mean, over the years. I mean, this chart, by the way, is pretty astounding. The working versus the retirement years. Back in 1910, most people worked for 54 years, and then they spent about 7 years in retirement. And then, you know, 1940, 1970, people started living longer. By 2000, that number had whittled down to 42 years of working and 18 years in retirement. And now with all the new wonder drugs, I mean, you know, we're staying alive a lot longer. Quite a different picture from yesteryear to now about what retirement actually looks like.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, it's kind of interesting if you go back and do a little study on retirement. Retirement itself is a real new phenomenon. It's basically a 20th century thing, because before the 20th century, people didn't retire. They pretty much worked till they died, and, you know, there was no plans of ever retiring. So that's really kind of a 20th century oddity. And I think we're starting to get back to the point where some people, you know, because they're just living so long, are afraid that maybe they're going to have to go back to work. And so it might be a short-lived thing unless you properly prepare. But in 2005, the first of the baby boomer generation turned 60. And the median age of retirement in America is also age 60. So is America's new generation of retirees prepared for the challenges that await them? Well, in the past, Americans' worst nightmare about retirement actually was not reaching it. But now, with 20, 30, or even 40 years in retirement becoming more and more common, the prospect of outliving your savings has become a very real possibility. And yesterday's retirees were supported by guaranteed income sources. They could collect a pension, they could count on a Social Security check, they could depend on health care benefits from their employers, even into retirement. And oh, how that's changing. Just think over the last 10 years how much that has changed. And today's retirees, they're looking at a completely different picture. They are increasingly responsible for generating their retirement income from personal savings. And at the same time, they're facing longer life expectancies and astounding leaps in expenses. You know, I just saw a report a couple of days ago, and it showed that food prices and energy prices have already gone up 18.4% just since February.
That's rough. That's rough.
So, you know, I think we're kind of headed that way. You know, it's going to continually get more expensive, so we always have to take that into consideration as we build a financial plan.
Well,
so today,
John,
go ahead.
I think also, you know, something to add here is the fact that, you know, those prices of food and energy, as they rise, you know, think about the retiree living on a fixed income. I mean, that is not keeping up with that. It's not keeping pace. There are so many retirees who are spending money on medications that are outrageous. They're obviously trying to keep up with all of these things on a fixed income. It is a scary prospect for many retirees. You know, this interesting little old three-legged stool of retirement, you know, Social Security, pension, personal savings. People used to be able to rely upon a pension. If you're lucky enough to still have a pension, it's so excellent. But many people don't have that anymore. Now, the typical retirement plan is a house and a 401k. And many people who are wondering if even Social Security is going to be there when they retire. Many of them don't have a pension anymore. They have a 401k. They've seen it turn in, as people have said over and over, into a 201k as it's been cut in half by the markets. And it's really something. I mean, it's really, really something. We're going to move into now, for the sake of time, because we do have a lot of questions beginning to pour in. We're going to move into the 7 financial landmines and how you can overcome the 7 financial landmines that can destroy your financial future. And John, why don't you take us through? We'll take a look at these one by one. Some of these we can actually impact. Now we're going to move into the solutions that we were talking to you about, the challenges and the solutions. Some of these, John, there's a solution for. Some of them, unfortunately, there's not. Some things we simply are out of our reach. We simply can't impact them. Like this very first one, the pension plunge. Why don't you talk to us about the pension plunge?
Okay, yes, the first 3 that we're going to talk about are challenges that we really do not have direct control of, but they're still worth talking about because we have to deal with them. So one of the challenges facing retirees is the decline of the traditional pension plan. These are being replaced by 401k or 403b plans, which depend on personal contributions. Plus, if you've read the headlines, you know that more and more of these pensions that exist are at risk. Companies offering pension plans are collectively underfunded by an estimated $66 billion. 3 facts have been primarily responsible for the demise of the defined benefit plans. First of all, the Great Bear Market, the stock market bubble that followed, and basically we had such a decline in just with the S&P 500 companies, they just have not kept pace with what is projected to keep these defined benefit plans healthy. And so as a result of that, since the markets haven't kept pace, they're being underfunded. But probably the biggest reason that's creating major problems for these defined benefit plans is that retirees are living longer. The burden of paying for pensions falls mostly on current workers. Until recently, that had not been a problem since the economy and workforce was a lot larger than the number of elderly in retirement. However, those numbers are changing with a vengeance. The number of retirees receiving pensions is now growing faster than the number of workers contributing to the defined benefit plans. So at some point, the young workers are likely to resent having their wages reduced to support pension payments to their boomer parents and grandparents, and but the continued pension payments still have to be made. So in addition to the other retirement benefits, it's going to have to be supported either by company workers, and if they're not going to continue to pay it, obviously that's not an option, or by taxpayers.
Sure.
And I'm guessing it's going to be taxpayers. And you will notice that the solutions to most of these things is eventually going to create higher taxes. I think it's inevitable that that's going to be coming. Mm-hmm. And then the third factor is that companies have just plain underfunded their pension plans. Over 50% of the 100 biggest corporate defined benefit pensions were underfunded to some degree. So between 1995 and 2002, flexible funding rules permitted the government, along with accounting credits, meant that each year during that period, no cash contributions were made to an average of 62.5% of the pensions. And simply what that means is they're not putting anywhere close to the amount of money into these pensions to support them.
Well, John, okay, what's the bottom line here on the pension plans? I mean, I think we're probably facing two things. One is that many people don't have a pension anymore, and two, some people do, but their pension may be at risk, may not be, obviously, but their pension may be at risk. Are pension plans like Social Security for younger people, should they not expect them to be there? Should they plan for them not to be there whenever they retire? You think that's a positive attitude?
Well, first of all, the pension plans, just look at the chart that's on the screen. Back in 1985, we had 114,000 plus defined benefit plans, and by year 2007, that's down to 30,000. And so the problem is a lot of these companies have kind of figured it out. They borrow money from the pension plan, then they go bankrupt, and then they start their company over without all the legacy cost. Mm-hmm. And it's happened over and over and over. The airlines kind of figured it out first, if you remember that a few years back. And, basically they just went and took all the money out and then went bankrupt and then started a new airline. And they didn't have all the legacy costs then. And speaking of Social Security, I think that's real interesting. In fact, I pulled out my Social Security Administration statement today. And I was explaining to somebody, if you look at that, under the section that's your benefits, they've actually started putting a little notation in there just to get us ready. And it said that don't be surprised, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this, but don't be surprised if your payment is reduced by about down to 76% of what we're quoting here, because by year 2037, we're going to have less workers out there than we are people receiving the benefit.
John, we've been talking about Social Security. We wrote extensively about it in the book Bankruptcy of Our Nation, and it's a chilling thing because many people have become accustomed to the benefits of Social Security. Even younger workers who expect to have some sort of social safety net. Talk to us about this second challenge. Obviously the first challenge with the pension is obviously if you have one, great. If you don't, don't think that your company is going to be adding one. So don't rely upon a pension, so to speak, anymore. Now we're moving on to social insecurity as opposed to social. Talk to us about Social Security and where it stands and what your thoughts are on it.
Okay. Well, originally, Social Security was intended to provide only supplemental retirement income for a minority of Americans. Well, Social Security has actually become the primary retirement income source for the majority of Americans. And Social Security has blossomed into more than just a retirement program because it added benefits for widows, disabled workers, children, and the Social Security Administration actually projects that the program will pay out more than it takes in by 2017. And actually, I heard a revision on that not too long ago where it's actually down to about 2013. Mm-hmm. And by 2040, benefits may run out altogether. Mm-hmm. And according to the U.S. debt clock, the current liability for Social Security is $14.3 trillion. Now, that's not including Medicare or the prescription drug liabilities. That's just the Social Security payment.
Yeah, Medicare's the biggie.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, huge. And but I think there's a lot of people have some perceptions and there's some realities with Social Security. One perception is that Social Security was intended to provide for all the old age income needs of retirees. Well, the reality of that is Social Security program was intended to provide only a basic floor of income for old age for the minority of retirees. So it wasn't designed to replace private savings.
You know, John, and something else, many people think that Social Security is a legal right.
Yes, and the reality to that is that most Americans view Social Security as an entitlement program, but what they don't understand is the federal government can actually reduce or remove the benefit whenever it chooses. And it's already started making some major modifications.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, and this was the very first year that the COLA did not increase for Social Security. We're beginning to see the cracks in Social Security. In our book, we talked about the 2040 crisis, and it is out there. There's a looming crisis, but we're beginning to see the cracks now in the fact that, Social Security is not providing that cost of living adjustment. This year, many seniors obviously noticed that instantly. That was a massive, massive change. That's the first time since they began doing the automatic adjustments that they didn't do it. So, I mean, it's in Social Security, it's one of these hot button topics. It's that third rail in politics. It doesn't seem like you're going to fix it, John, because who wants to be the politician to come out and fix this thing? I mean, who wants to go before the voters and say, look, we got to cut benefits?
Well, that's what I've always said, and I found that interesting because a lot of people always say, well, will Social Security be around? And personally, I believe it will, because let's think about it this way. We're a two-party country. We have Democrats and we have Republicans. That's pretty much it. And do you want to be the party that has to stand up and make the announcement while you're in power saying Social Security's done? And yet the biggest block of voters are baby boomers that are going to be using it or are using it. They'll never get elected again. So they'll just continually keep modifying it and reducing it. But I think in some way, shape, or form it'll be around a long time. It just may look a lot different.
It sure has been hit, though, hard. We look at this chart and we see in 1945 there were 16 workers per beneficiary, and now it's down to 3.25 in 2005. I mean, that's a major drop in a very short time.
And they believe by 2020 that will actually be 2 to 1.
That's just that's very rough. Okay, let's keep trucking. There's really not much. Again, with these first three, as we mentioned, these are landmines that really we have to be aware of, but we cannot really do much about them. We cannot demand that we get more Social Security. We cannot demand that it be there when we retire. We have to be aware of these financial landmines. These first three we're talking about don't necessarily have any direct solution, but the final four that we're going to get into do. So let's keep moving and talk about, and before we do a quick commercial, don't forget, follow the Money Weekly with Jerry Robinson. Listen to our radio show every single Saturday morning. John was, by the way, on last Saturday if you didn't have a chance to listen. And Tom Cloud gave the Precious Metals Market Update. It's an hour-long show. Log on at ftmdaily.com. Click on the radio show button, and you can listen live every single Saturday morning. Okay, financial landmine number 3, the healthcare nightmare. John, talk to us about this one. This is a
Well, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time with this because the chart kind of says it all. And, the average cost per person back in 1980 for medical expenses, that includes the premium for your health insurance as well as your expenses that are out of pocket. The average per person was $1,067 back in 1980. By year 2003, that was up to $5,775 per person, and the projection for this year is it's going to end at right around $8,700. So you can see it's going up, it's going up, it's going up, no chance of it going down, and quite frankly, I don't know if all the wheeling and dealing of the new health care law is going to make a big difference in how much it's going to cost people. So, but I guess that's yet to be seen.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, and I know many employers out there are, trying to make changes because they're seeing pretty big changes in their group health insurance right now. And they're kind of locked in because of some of the grandfathering that was done. So those of you who are employers out there are very well aware of that. It's just becoming a very scary thing for not only employers but individuals as we move into retirement. How are we going to be able to fund the health care? Medicare itself is in danger zone, and Medicaid obviously is a huge expense. So just a lot of reform that's needed, and I think the health care reform that was pushed through with this new administration, I think there's a lot to be, we're just going to have to keep our eyes on this. It's a very negative situation.
Yeah, I'd like to just have one stat here that I'd like to share with y'all.
Yeah.
The Employee Benefit Research Institute estimates that even with Medicare, a couple age 65 may need almost $300,000 just to pay for health care premiums and out-of-pocket expenses in retirement if they live to an average life expectancy. And that's more money than the typical household has saved.
Oh, $300,000 just for health care premiums and out-of-pocket expenses. That's not for everything else. $300,000
That's right.
for health insurance premiums and yeah, it's outrageous. And there was a study that was done, I think it was CNN Money, that showed that 43% of baby boomers had less than $10,000 in retirement savings. And here we are staring at a need, potentially, in some cases, of up to $300,000 just to pay for health care premiums and retirement. I mean, we're talking, yeah, we do have an issue on our hands here with this whole thing. All right, let's move into financial landmine number 4. Now we begin the 4 that you can actually have an impact on. How many of you out there, and just type in a Y if you agree, believe that taxes are going to be higher over the coming decade? How many of you would say yes, and just type a Y into your box? And I would expect to see Y after Y, and sure enough, look at you. So many of you. I see you, John, Stephen, David, Sharon D., Robert, Barry. I mean, just coming in. Yeah, everyone knows that, and Gary, that these taxes are going to be going up dramatically. John, talk to us about the tax problem, and I know we could probably spend a whole, and in fact, we're going to be spending an entire webinar with a tax specialist later on in the year talking about this. But share with us briefly about this and what can we do to protect our retirement from the taxes. And I think this is probably, those of you in the audience, think about your Roth conversion questions at this point. Think about your IRA questions. That would be a good time to toss those in, and we'll take some questions right after he talks about taxes. John, what do you have to say about this topic?
Okay. Actually, I could do a whole webinar just on this one topic, and I probably spend the majority of my financial planning practice on helping people reduce their taxes. And if you have investments, if you do not understand how taxes work in conjunction with the investments, then you probably are paying more taxes than you need to. And so you can see by the chart here, all the things that we're responsible for, that income taxes is America's largest monthly expense. In fact, I saw a study the other day that basically said you work till April 17th each year, and all the money you make up to April 17th goes to pay just your income taxes, and then everything after that is what you spend for housing, medical care, food, and everything else that you need and want. And so, you know, kind of an interesting thing, but I'm going to skip a lot of this because I really want to get into some of the strategies that we can do to help reduce taxes. And the first one that I want to talk about, and this is for all the people that are receiving a Social Security benefit, some type of an income, and I'm going to make it real easy for you. If you pull out your income tax return from last year, and if it was a 1040 form, you could just go to line 20A. If you go look at line 20A, that will tell you how much Social Security you actually received. Then if you look at line 20B, which is right next to it, that tells you how much of that income was taxed. And it's real simple to see if you have a tax problem with your Social Security benefit income. So we're going to give you a little strategy here that just want to kind of give you a little history of Social Security real quick, but then a strategy. And I always like to start it off with, do you remember Arthur Godfrey, Jerry?
No.
Arthur, you might be a little too young for that, but Arthur Godfrey once said, and I love this quote, "I'm proud to be paying taxes in the United States. The only thing is, I could be just as proud for half the money." And always like that quote.
Many people feel that way tonight.
Well, I tell you what, the interesting thing is you go look at all of the IRS codes that are written. You know what those are written for? To show you how to reduce your taxes. The problem is the federal government doesn't send anybody else to teach you how to do that, and typically your accountant doesn't teach you to do that in most cases. How many times have you had your accountant actually stop by and say, hey, let's just spend a night here showing you different ways of reducing your taxes? Well, typically that's not their job. What their job is to take the information that you give them, they put it on the forms in the proper places, tell you how much you owe or how much you're going to get back, and then they send it off. And that's typically what they do. And so it's usually financial planners that will come in that will help show you strategies that will help you reduce taxes. And the first one that I really would like to share with you is how to reduce or even eliminate taxes on your Social Security benefit income. Well, first of all, we all know that Social Security was a part of the New Deal, and President Roosevelt signed that in back in 1935. And basically at that time, all the Social Security benefit incomes that were received was a non-taxable event. So you got that money and didn't have to pay tax on it. But then 1983 came along, and President Reagan signed a provision in the tax law that amended the IRS tax code to allow the taxation of Social Security. And then the Revenue Reconciliation Act of 1993 was created, and this act added an additional financial burden for many retired persons by exposing more of their Social Security benefits to personal income taxes. So by 1983 through 1994, all of a sudden we went from Social Security income not being taxed to where quite a bit of it was being taxed. And so basically that brings us kind of up to, well, where do we go, where are we going to go from here as far as trying to figure out how to reduce these taxes? Well, the question that really becomes prevalent is, in fact, you might be saying to yourself, I am tired of paying income taxes on my Social Security benefit income, and I want to keep what they give me. So what's the solution? The solution for most people is learning how to control your reportable income. By controlling your reportable income, this will substantially help you reduce the taxes on your Social Security benefit income. So the question is, well, what's reportable income? If you want the nutshell version, pull out your 1040 tax form. Everything from line 7 to line 21 is all the incomes that you can possibly receive. It could be earned wages. It could be business earnings, unemployment compensation, farm income, capital gains, IRA distributions, pension distributions. If you have any rental real estate properties, that's considered income. Royalties, partnerships, S corporations, trusts. All of those are considered reportable income. But here's the one that intrigues me the most. Half of your Social Security benefit is considered reportable income. Here's what that means. First of all, the lawmakers, they really sharpened their pencils on this. They really figured it out, because we're going to learn in just a minute what those taxable income numbers are. But here's what that last thing means. Your Social Security, half of it is considered reportable income. And but the real Social Security benefit killers are your 1099 interest statements from your investments that maybe you have in CDs, checking accounts, savings accounts, anything that is creating some type of an interest income. And you're going to find that number, and you're going to say, well, I don't have that much, but you'll find it on line 8A of your 1040 form. So if you have a number there, you're paying tax on that, and you know that because you're getting your 1099 in January, and what do? Take it down to your accountant. He puts it into line 8A, and you pay tax on it. Well, also, line 9 does the same thing, except it's called 1099 dividend income. And, again, you're going to get a 1099 dividend statement. Take it to your accountant. He puts it in the number, and that's all considered reportable income. Here's the one that I find the most interesting, though, is the one that goes in line 8B. It's all those tax-free municipal bonds. Remember, if you own any of those, what was the big selling point of owning a tax-free municipal bond? It was, I didn't have to pay taxes on it. And you know what? The guy that sold you that, and he told you that, he was absolutely right. You do not pay taxes on the earnings. However, the earnings have to be reported in line 8B as reportable income. So even though you don't pay tax exactly on it, it is a part of your income, and if your income gets too high, then you have to pay taxes on your Social Security benefit. So they didn't get you over here. They just went around the block and got you on the other side.
Wow. Well, John, I mean, what's the strategy here on how to stop or reduce taxes on the Social Security benefit income?
Okay. Well, it's real easy. First of all, you have to understand what are the reportable income levels. And if you are a single taxpayer and you're receiving your Social Security benefit income, if you show reportable income over $25,000, that is the trigger number where you start paying taxes, and you're going to have to pay taxes on 50% of your Social Security benefit. If your reportable income is over $34,000, then you're going to pay taxes on 85% of that benefit that you received. Now, let me give you an idea of exactly what that means, okay? Let's say that you receive $1,000 a month, and you have reportable income at $26,000. Well, then that $1,000 a month that you're getting from Social Security, $500 of it will be taxable income, and let's say you're in the 15% tax bracket. Well, you're going to pay 15% on $500. So that's what your taxable event is. And if you're married, filing jointly, and you make income over $32,000, then 50% of your Social Security benefit is taxed, and if you're over $44,000, then 85% is being taxed. So I always like to call magic numbers here.
Yeah, the magic number, John, seems to be 25,000 as a cutoff for an individual. Is that right?
For a single taxpayer, the magic number is 25,000. For a married couple filing jointly, it's 32,000. So if you can show reportable income under those numbers, guess what? You get to keep all your Social Security benefit income, no taxes on it.
All right, that's good. Now we need to keep moving right along. Let's talk about this top marginal tax rate. And where taxes might be going. I think this is probably going to drive our next couple of strategies, because I know many people are writing in and they have questions about the 401k or IRA conversion to a Roth IRA. Many people now are discovering that law has been introduced, or the conversion has been introduced, and so now people have that option. And I think the logic basically is seen in this chart right here. Talk to us about this chart, John.
Okay, basically when income taxes started back in 1913, you'll see they were relatively low. But then we went through a period of time where we had to fund our military, because we were in a war, not only World War II, but we had the Korean War, then the Vietnam War. And that's when the top tax bracket was actually got up to 94%. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I don't make enough income to worry about the top income tax bracket, but you do, because the lower ones coincided right with it and went up just as much, not to 94%, but it went up to a lot higher point than where you're at right now. And so Once we got done funding the war, then basically the taxes came back down. But this time around, we have some more problems. See, back then, we didn't have a $13 trillion debt. We didn't have a $1.4 trillion a year deficit. We didn't have, between Social Security, Medicare, and prescription drugs, $109 trillion of unfunded liabilities. We didn't have all of that back then. All we had was a war. Well, now we still have wars that we have to fund, and we have all of these other obligations. So as a result of that, I believe that we're going to see tax rates go back up. They're going to have to go back up. And right now the government has actually done a real good job of nickeling and diming everybody, but at some point we're going to see those income tax rates go up because they're going to need bulk money. And what I mean by nickel and diming is, look at all the taxes that are out there right now. You got sales tax, you got gasoline tax. I mean, tax for anything that you do, there's a tax. And they just keep throwing new little ones because nobody ever gets, throws a fuss over all the little ones. But when they start messing with the income tax rates, you're gonna hear a lot of commotion.
Well, John, okay, and we our time here, we're getting short on time, and we have a lot to cover. So let's get down to the strategy here. We have a question: should I convert my 401k to a Roth IRA? Discuss, and obviously you have no clue who this person is, so you can't obviously give them exact advice. But talk about the strategy itself briefly, and talk about who it might be good for and the benefits that come along with it.
Okay, and we can't make this, and I'm glad you said that, because it's real hard to say exactly if this is good for you or not until we do a whole financial profile. But here's one of the things that you have. This year, obviously, we have the ability to convert traditional IRAs into Roth IRAs. And for people that actually have money in 401k plans, if your 401k plan gives you the ability to do an in-service rollover for non-hardship cases, you can actually roll that portion of your money as well into a traditional IRA and then convert it to the Roth IRA. But why is this year a good year to do that? Well, because the government needs money, and they need it now. And so they made a tax law that basically said, hey, if you guys will convert your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, we'll let you pay the taxes now at today's lower tax rates, and we'll even let you do it over the next 2 years. So I don't have to pay that whole tax obligation in 1 year. I get 2 years to do that. And so as a result of that, it's really a great opportunity for a lot of people, because if you can think about it this way, we just talked about Social Security and reportable income, and what was the magic numbers? 25,000 for single, 32,000 for a married couple. So if I convert my traditional IRA, pay the taxes now, and then when I start to take my income from my Roth IRA, guess what? That is not a reportable income. And so that means I have money to live on, but I don't have to pay taxes on it, nor do I have to report it.
Okay, John, say that again. Roth IRA income is not reportable income. Is that what you said?
It's not reportable income.
Now that's an interesting strategy, because if you're trying to keep down below that magic number, that's one way to work the tax in your favor, isn't it? Because if you convert to a Roth IRA, and then you take that stream of income from the Roth, and it's tax-free as it comes in, it's income tax-free, and then you begin getting Social Security, you don't have to claim that income as reportable income. That's a good strategy. I like that one.
And that is huge. And so the point of it is we don't want to live on less income. We just want to keep all the income without paying taxes, and that's what this strategy will do.
John, let me say this. That is what I like about this whole idea, because, one of the things that people often say is when they look at these charts, like these tax rates, take a look, folks, at this tax rate that you're seeing on the screen. Here's what many times financial advisors will say to you. They'll say, go ahead and invest in a tax-deferred plan like your 401k or into your traditional IRA. Why? Because you're going to put the money back tax-deferred. You're not going to pay taxes on it now. You're going to pay taxes on it when? You're going to pay taxes on it later. Well, where are you going to be whenever you retire? In a lower tax bracket. Listen to the logic of that. Here is a financial advisor who's coming to you saying, hey, let's make you retire in a lower tax bracket. Just think about that logic for a minute. A financial advisor who's supposed to be helping you is actually trying to take you to a lower tax bracket when you retire. The whole point of working is to accumulate. And obviously, if you think that taxes are going to be higher over the next several years and next several decades, then this idea of converting to a Roth now, paying the piper, getting it out of the way, I think that for many of you, it may be one of the wisest decisions. Now, if you're going to be taking the money in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, John, what do you say about that? Somebody's short term, they're maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years away from actually taking a stream of income. Is it worth it to pay the piper now and convert to the Roth IRA?
Typically not. And really the key to it is, do you have the ability to pay the taxes from some other source of money other than your IRA?
John, does the IRS allow you to pay, because that's the thing, when you do convert, you have to pay the taxes right then, but they give you the ability to spread it out over 2 years. Is that right? 50%?
Right, as long as you do it this year.
Okay, so you have to
now starting January 1st of 2011, then that's off. Okay. So you have to do it before December 31st.
Okay, so that answers a lot of people's questions that I'm seeing coming in. Here's the other question. Can you use the money that's inside the IRA to pay the tax bill? Now, obviously, that's not advantageous, but can you use the money that's in it to pay it?
Well, you can, but you got to be real careful about one thing, and that is if you're not 59 and a half yet, and you take that money and roll it to the Roth IRA, then you take the money out to pay the tax bill, and because you're not 59 and a half yet, you're going to have a 10% penalty to the IRS.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you probably, again, you really don't want to pay the taxes out of your IRA. If you do, you're probably, it's going to take usually somewhere between 8 to 11 years to recoup it.
Mm-hmm. So somebody who's, let's say, 40 years old, they have a traditional IRA, they hear about this Roth IRA conversion, they're not retiring for another 25 years. By the time we get 25 years out, folks, the tax rates, if I'm sitting here in this chair, they have got to be higher than where they are now. And I think everyone agrees with us because we see how indebted we are. And so by paying the piper now and converting it. Now, there was a Wall Street Journal article that was put out the other day, John, that said, are Roth IRAs really tax-free? And it floated the idea, and I don't know where this idea came from. I'm still researching this. But it floated the idea that it's possible that they could begin putting indirect taxes, and I don't have the specifics on it. I need to look it up. I'll post it on Follow Them. I'll post the story on Follow the Money Daily tomorrow morning. But have you heard anything about that? Are Roths in danger of being taxed?
I have not heard that. However, I'm going to go back to our biblical worldview and remember the deception of men and the abilities of governments to manipulate. Well, the point is, could they change the rules and do that? At some point in time, they could. However, if they change the rules, so far, what they've always done is they've always grandfathered the accounts that have done it during the time they allowed it. And then what they do is they make their money off the people that do it after the fact. So they've always grandfathered the tax laws.
Okay, folks, we're going to move on to strategy number 3. This is a real interesting strategy. And before I do, does anyone have any specific questions relating to IRAs, Roth conversions, 401k questions? If so, type them in. And if not, we're just going to keep moving on. Penny asks a question. She makes a comment. She says, U.S. government is considering confiscating IRAs and 401ks like Venezuela did. Should I cash in while I can? They're going to be converting to an annuity. is the government proposal at this time. You've heard this floated around. They're talking about basically taking it and putting it into an annuity. What do you think, John? Do you think that's a wise reason to go ahead and cash out a IRA or a 401k?
No, I absolutely do not. That's one of the tax legislations we're really following, obviously. But what they're recommending is that you use annuities because an annuity is the only investment out there that can create an income stream that will last as long as you do. It's the only investment. No other investment can guarantee an income stream to last your entire lifetime. So as a result of that, what they're looking at is saying, well, we want to make sure that we don't have to take care of all the people all the time. So if they have a retirement account, we're going to make them put it into an annuity to where they can start the income stream that will last the rest of their life.
David, I see your question. David asks, what are the best investments that will not have large taxes? David, we're gonna tackle that question here upcoming and later on here in the webinar. We got to keep trucking. We're going to try to stay on time. We're at about 9:30. We want to keep moving. We have a lot to cover, but we're gonna wrap it up here pretty soon. Strategy number 3 on the tax acts, John. Tell us briefly. Give us a thumbnail sketch and tease us with it, because we're going to have to move on to the next landmine.
Okay, this is always one of my favorite ones, because your number one goal, as far as the strategy that you talked about, was charitable giving. That should be a part of our plan. And one of the unique strategies that I just love is, I always like to ask people, and this is for people that have large qualified accounts like IRAs, 401ks, the pre-tax dollar accounts. And I always like to ask them, I always make this statement: there's 3 beneficiaries of your IRA. There's your family, there's a charity, and there's the U.S. government. You get to pick 2 of them. Which 2 are you going to pick?
Mm-hmm.
And most people that I come across either want to give the money to charity and their kids, and they really don't want to give it to Uncle Sam.
Well, John, but in reality, they normally end up giving it to Uncle Sam. You know, that's most people don't want to, but they do. Most people at retirement give their money to nursing homes, other corporations, and the U.S. government, and their real intention is to give it to family and charity.
That's right, and we see it over and over, because there's so many strategies out there on how you take an IRA. Because first of all, let's say the husband is the one that worked and had the 401k, and he passes away. Well, his wife gets to take that IRA over because of the marital exclusion allowance. No taxes. The only tax she pays is as she takes income from it, but she doesn't have to pay tax on the entire amount. Where the tax time bomb hits is when the second person of the husband and wife passes away, and now it goes to the kids. And what the rules basically are is that the kids have until December 31st of the year that the second parent passed away to determine how they're going to take the money. And they have a lot of ways of taking it. However, most people never know. They don't know the rules. They don't know how to take it to keep the taxes low. So what do? They take all the money. So let's say you had a $200,000 IRA. And let's say your child that has a job where they make $50,000 a year. Well, all of a sudden now, in that 1 year, they just made $250,000. Do you think that's going to put them in a higher tax bracket?
That's an Uncle Sam payday, basically.
That's an uncle, yes. I mean, we're talking 40 to 50% of that money is going to be going to Uncle Sam if they don't know how to take the money. Okay. And that's why I always tell my clients, the first call that your kids should make is probably to me, where I can explain their options to them.
Yeah, tell us briefly a strategy to use in a case like this.
Okay, if you have a portion of your IRA that you're not planning on using as income, what you could do is you take that portion of the money and you still leave it an IRA, but you start taking an income stream from it. Now, you'll pay taxes on that income stream, but you take the income stream and then buy a life insurance policy. Let's say we have a husband and a wife. in that situation, we would buy a second-to-die life insurance policy. And what that is a policy on both individuals that does not pay out until the second one passes away. Well, that makes the cost of the premium less because the insurance company doesn't have to pay till the second one passes away. So with the life insurance policy, and let's just say we're going to do $500,000 just to make the numbers round. I have $500,000 in my IRA that I'm not going to use anyway, and I start taking an income from it to buy a $500,000 death benefit on a second-to-die life insurance policy. So here's what I can do. I can name my kids as the beneficiary of the life insurance policy. Then I can name the charities that I want to have some type of a contribution the beneficiary of my IRA. So when the second person passes away, what happens? Well, the death benefit from the life insurance policy passes on to the children, income tax-free. So they just got $500,000 income tax-free. They can get it all in 1 year. It's not reportable income, and they get it. Then the beneficiaries of the IRA when the second person passes away is the charity. So they get all the money that came from the IRA. Well, the IRA, remember, is a taxable event, but not to charities. Charities don't pay taxes.
Okay, so think about that for a minute. So you have $500,000. Let's just, many people may not have $500,000, but let's just use this.
Well,
let's just
100,000.
Yeah, 100,000. Let's say you have $100,000 in your IRA, and you say, I want to leave this to Junior. So you have two options. A, you can make him the beneficiary of it, or you can begin to take an income stream off of it and buy a life insurance policy for Junior that's income tax free for him, and then leave the IRA to a charity at death. And therefore, you took your $100,000 and you doubled it, and it didn't necessarily cost you anything out of pocket. Interesting. You basically doubled it, didn't you?
Right.
And gave Junior $100,000 tax free. It's strategy.
Right. So basically, I was able to gift to a charity without disinheriting the kids.
Exactly. That's beautiful. Okay, these are good strategies. We're teasing you with some of these. Obviously, we have a lot to cover, so we're going to keep moving. The next financial landmine is inflation. Many of you are curious, what investments can I put my money into to protect against inflation? John, talk about this chart that's on the screen.
Okay, basically this is a chart that shows that if depending on how much you need in retirement, depending on how many years away and what the annual inflation rate is, will determine how much you really need to have as income. For example, look at the first line, 3% annual inflation. If your current income needs is $50,000, well, 10 years from now, you need to be making $67,196 to have the same purchasing power to buy whatever you bought for $50,000 back then, 10 years earlier. And you can see 20 years down the road, you need $90,000 of income. 35 years from now, you'd need $140,000 of income. And then as the annual inflation rate rises, the 5%, it just takes more money. If annual inflation is 7%, it takes more money. Why did I choose those numbers? Well, if you look down in the notes at the bottom, the historical annual inflation rates of the 1990s was 3%. In the 1980s, it was 5%. And for all of us that remember the 1970s, it was an average of 7%, but I think it topped out at right around 14 or 15%, I think around 78 or 79, something like that.
John, but what's interesting about these numbers is, what we're predicting, what many are predicting as well, is this is going to be chump change compared to where we see the massive inflation coming in the future, where we're going to have some double-digit inflation. I got a couple of things I want to show you here for a minute on the topic of inflation. Here's a picture of the Weimar Republic, a real popular picture, a German woman burning her money. You've seen this before. Burning her money. Why? Because it burned longer than the amount of firewood that she could buy with that money, that same money. This is hyperinflation in effect in the 1920s. Here's Zimbabwe currency, and I have a free copy of Bankruptcy of Our Nation to give out to the very first individual who can answer this question correctly. You see this right here, the 50 billion note right here, the Zimbabwe currency. Get over to your question box and answer this to the best of your ability. How much is the $50 billion note worth currently in U.S. dollars? If I was to hand you, I've held one of these 50 billion notes in my hand. It's very strange to hold one of these in your hand and say, I held 50 billion in my hand. How much is that worth in U.S. dollars? Let me go check my question box and see what we have. We have a free copy of the book coming to you. No right answers yet. Keep going. Somebody says 10 cents. Somebody says 0. Oh, dear. David, that's funny. We've got quite a few. Okay, you're getting close. I'm going to have to give it to the closest person. It's just somebody else type in something else because you're getting so close. Just type in anything. Oh. Oh. All right. We have a winner. It's Robert Hyder. He was the closest. Let's look at the answer. Robert Hyder. Chris is on the line. I'm sure she hears this webinar. Make sure Robert gets a copy of Bankruptcy of Our Nation. Robert, we know you, so we'll get that copy out to you. €2 or less than $3, and that's Robert answered correctly with $3.25. He was the closest. Can you believe that? That's exactly what hyperinflation is all about. It takes 50 billion and turns it into $3. That's hyperinflation. And you'd say, well, that would never happen to the U.S. dollar. Folks, over the whole time since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, we have had a massive onslaught of inflation. And here's what it is. It is a gradual loss of purchasing power over time. John, I hear you in the background there. But it's a gradual loss of purchasing power over time. And you can see how over time, since 1913, the dollar has continued to lose its value. And so, John, let's talk quickly about strategies for inflation. I think David even asked the question here, what's the best place to go? What kind of investments? And he was talking about taxes, it was David, asked about what investments will not have large taxes. But let's cover two types of investments. First of all, what are good tax-sheltered type of investments? And then second, what are some very good inflation-proofing strategies for investing?
Well, I think am I still on? There we go. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had the mute off. One of them, okay, there's two landmines that kind of go together. We talk about inflation, but we also have the next one, and I'm going to incorporate it right into it, called the age wave. People are living longer. So not only do we want to create income streams that can live as long as you're alive, but we also have to stay ahead of inflation. So there's several investments that do well with that. Gold could be one because typically it stays ahead of inflation. But if you like the concept of the market, there's a lot of investments out there that are tied to the markets, but the problem I have with those is, what if the market goes down? So I look at investments where I can get the gains of the market when the market goes up. I don't take the losses when the market goes down, but even more importantly, when I start my income stream, I get a guaranteed raise of my income every year that the market goes up. So that means I may start out at a certain income, but if the next year the market, let's say, goes up by 3%, Well, I'm going to get a 3% raise in my income stream, and now that's my new guaranteed amount that I'm going to get as long as I'm alive and my wife is alive.
Okay.
And that is very important because, again, income is more important than the actual asset. So what I want to have happen is, as long as I'm alive and as long as my wife is alive, not only do I want to make sure I have an income, but I want to make sure that it stays ahead of inflation, and typically the market will do that, especially if I don't have to take losses in the loss years.
Okay. And what kind of investment is that again?
That's a fixed indexed annuity.
Okay, a fixed index annuity. And so then you have...
And there's only one company actually out there that when you start the income stream, that it actually increases as the market goes up, even when I start taking the income.
Interesting. Okay. Probably don't want to mention that one right here on the air, but okay. Well, that's an excellent strategy. I know annuities have been something that's been very popular. I'm a friend of annuities because I believe that for the right person, listen, this is something that needs to be said, because there are so many bozos out there in this financial landscape. I mean, they are everywhere. I mean, if you go back a few radio shows on FTM Daily or FTM Weekly, we were doing the radio show. I didn't put any audio on. I'm going to bring some audio on here in the next couple of weeks and let you hear some of these bozos that have been on radio and TV talking about things. For example, Dave Ramsey, okay? Dave Ramsey, who says basically that gold is a dumb investment. Silver is stupid. Basically, the best thing that you need to do is put money in mutual funds and trust the mutual fund manager. That is absurd. It's completely absurd. And that obviously is a man who's been bought by the mutual fund companies because the mutual funds run the universe. Susie Orman, it's the same thing. It's the same message. These people preach the same thing. And whenever this financial crisis hit, all of a sudden they got all excited about you having liquid savings. But prior to that, they were not real adamant about that. Their big thing is pay off all of your debt. Make sure you have absolutely positively no debt. You know, when you look at it from an economic standpoint, much of what they say does not make a lot of economic sense. And here's what I want to tell you. If you listen to some of these guys on TV, they'll tell you gold is a bad idea, silver's a bad idea, annuities are a bad idea, life insurance is a bad idea, long-term care is a bad idea. Listen to me. Listen to me for a minute. I mean, we've got to speak some sense here. Number one, and you've heard me say this before, can you imagine how idiotic I would sound to you if right here on this webinar, I said this, if I said this? Folks, I want to tell you tonight that a hammer is a terrible tool. And then I just stop there. I hate hammers. I don't have any use for hammers, and I can't believe anybody would own a hammer. You might want to put me in an institution if I said that. Well, hammers are too expensive and they don't really do what I want them to do. I don't like the hammer I have. What? It's a tool. Every single financial product is a tool that fits in the tool bag. Now, you may not need it. It may not fit your situation. It may not be the tool for the job. You may not have a nail that you can't drive into a wall, so you don't need a hammer. But to say that all hammers are bad because you don't need a hammer is idiotic. And the only people who do that, listen to me please, the only people who do that are people who are trying to sell you something else. There are some financial tools out there that I think they probably don't fit most people's situation. But I wouldn't say that all of them are bad. And so every single financial product is a tool. And so when you hear people talk about gold or silver, and let me say this, one more thing that we need to add in here before you talk about the Sage Wave. Hear me on this. We just reported a story talking about one of the biggest billionaires in the world going all in on gold. He said, I'm moving all my money into gold. That's it. I don't trust the paper currency. I'm going to put all my money in gold. Folks, hear me. and listen to this. You've got to hear this. The most important thing, the way that you can protect yourself against an unruly government is by not putting all your eggs in one basket, because they can change the rules. Ask them back in 1933. If you think that the government is out of hand, then don't put everything where they can find it in one box. The key to protecting yourself from this government is to be nimble, to be quick, to be diversified. And so if they change the rules in one area, that's okay, because you got money over here and you got money over there. You got a little bit over here, a little bit over there. You've got to spread it out. And that's exactly what the Bible tells you. Spread it out. Spread out that money. Don't put it all in one place. So don't, as we see all this stuff, don't freak out and go in one direction and say, I've got to overload in this. Don't overload anywhere. Be very careful that you don't overload anywhere, because the government sees all this. They can come in and infiltrate any box anytime. Nothing is off limits to them. So be very, very careful when it comes to how you view these things. Many of our perceptions have been told. The reason I say that is because as John was talking about annuities, I began to think about a bias that I had in my mind about annuities. I began to think, well, I've heard people say, but I've seen annuities do great things for some people. I've also seen them probably do very bad things for people who can't get out of them, So, it's both back and forth. Some people who have no business buying gold. Why? Because they don't have any savings. Some people have no business buying stocks. Remember, our protect, save, invest. Protect, save, and invest. Okay, John, we do have some questions, but I want you to keep going, and I'll pepper you with questions as we go. Folks, if you have any questions about anything you've heard tonight, type them in. We will get to them as we go. John, talk to us about the age wave.
Okay, before I do that, I just want to kind of say the same thing that you just said. I tell people all the time, every investment can be good, every investment can be bad, and what it really boils down to is how well you understand how it works, and does it fit the need that you have and the goals that you have. And as long as it does that, an investment can be a very sound investment. But let's go on to the age wave. The age wave, it's kind of interesting because people are just flat out living longer. That's all there is to it. And people are living longer into retirement, and as a result of that, it's starting to get to the point where that's the number one fear of retirees. They're starting to worry about, am I going to run out of assets to where I'm going to have to go back to work? And so it has become a real concern. And just a few numbers on that. In 2005, 36.5 million Americans were over the age of 65. For a couple age 65, there was a 50% chance one of them would live to 91, and a 25% chance one of them will live to 96. Just an interesting tidbit. Hallmark Cards sells about 85,100 birthday cards per year.
Wow.
So what's the strategy? The strategy is to create income flow that you cannot outlive.
John, that's going to be the rage. I mean, that's going to be the rage. There's going to be people who invest, and they simply run out of money, and that's going to be a very sad thing, seeing people who are older who simply don't have any more money. They just ran out.
Well, they ran out, and their income stream, even if they guaranteed it, didn't increase and stay ahead of inflation. So those two things, that's why they go together, hand in hand. I got to have an income that lasts forever, or at least as long as I'm alive, and it has to stay ahead of inflation.
All right, let's move to challenge number 7, because we are running out of time now. We have investor blunders, and this is a big one, the Dalbar study that was published. This is really interesting. Talk to us about this this challenge and how it really harms people.
Okay, well, first of all, the final challenge here is investor error. Today, 90% of investors have no financial plan. 60% of workers have saved less than $10,000. And 40% of pre-retirees have saved almost nothing. and evidence shows that those who have been able to accumulate a portfolio have experienced disappointing results. So from 1987 to 2006, the S&P 500 posted an annual return of almost 12%, while many investors significantly underperformed that return. So it's no wonder that people have lost a lot of confidence in the market. The fund trading scandals of recent years have depleted investors' confidence. The bursting of the tech bubble, the subprime mortgage bubble, the Enron, the WorldCom debacles, all the manipulations of the financiers, the governments, the banks, have all contributed to investor fears. So when investors are fearful, they may try to overcompensate in pursuit of their financial goal, and typically that makes them vulnerable to more mistakes. You know, I always think back to sports a little bit when I hear that, because when a team is behind, you usually hear the announcer say, well, they're doing things that they normally wouldn't do because they have to take risks and chances to get back into the game.
That's right.
Well, the same thing with investing, right? If I get behind, then I'm going to take unnecessary risks to try to get back into the game.
Sure.
And that's when investors become more vulnerable, and then they have a tendency to start investing emotionally instead of intelligently. Mm-hmm. And so some of the most common and devastating investor mistakes, I'm just going to run down these real fast, but here are the most common mistakes. First of all, they have no retirement account at all. Secondly, they have no solid retirement plan. Thirdly, they do not have a trusted financial expert. In fact, this one I want to spend a little more time on, just because I really enjoyed, Jerry, your beginning of this, the crazy uncle. But 31% say they rely on a relative's advice, while 27% consult a financial service professional. 16% consult a friend or a coworker. 8% rely on financial publications or television shows. 4% seek advice through the internet, and 10% say they rely only on themselves. So there you have the breakdown. The fourth common mistake, they practice irrational behavior with their investments. The next one, they save too little and they start too late. You know, most people typically don't start saving for their retirement till they hit about 40 to 41 years old. Just think how much better it would be if they started when they were 21, or when they got their first job and they started putting a little bit away. You know, what's more important than the amount of return each year is the years of investing. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, the sooner you start, the more you'll have. And the next common mistake is people don't invest for the long run. The next mistake is they do not diversify their assets. And here's probably the biggest one. They raid their retirement funds prematurely. How many people do you know that have a 401k and they go take loans against it, or they get laid off, or they completely leave that job, they cash their 401k in, and now if they're not 59 and a half, not only do they pay income taxes on all that money, but they have to pay the penalty because they're not 59 and a half yet.
John,
and when people,
what's interesting about that is that many of our readers and listeners have told us that because they have that 6 months liquidity, you know, throughout this whole crisis, they have not had to tap their retirement money. Many people had to tap their 401k money at the very bottom of the market, John, because they needed cash. As we were going, maybe they got laid off, maybe they got behind on their mortgage payment, and so they had to tap into their 401k. And but if they have that diversified 6 months liquid savings, they can tap that instead of
that's right.
their 401k, and that's what happens. You know, because people have been taught to max out their 401k, that's usually where all their savings is. And so when they run into a crisis, which every one of us do, they don't have any money. So they got to go raid their retirement plan.
Yeah, and we just talked about the three pitfalls of that. I told you two, and you said the other one. The first one is you got to pay income tax on it. Secondly, I have to pay a penalty on it for taking it. And like you said, they're doing it when the market is at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and those are the three worst things to do.
Sure. Well, let's talk about good news here, John. Let's talk about some of the good news here.
Okay. First of all, awareness is the first step. Understand the challenges that are creating the retirement crisis in America. These challenges are real, and more so than in previous generations. The responsibility for addressing income needs rests solely on each investor's shoulders. So it's really up to us to educate ourselves and make sure we understand how we're going to deal with each of these challenges. The second step then is to ensure your retirement income lasts as long as you do. Ask yourself these questions. How much time might you spend in retirement? What is the right amount of income you should have? How is your money invested? Is your plan too aggressive or too conservative? How much of your retirement income are you willing to leave unprotected? Remember, risk investments go up and they also go down. So how much of that of your investment should be in a situation where when the market goes up you earn, but when the market goes down you don't lose a dime? And Jerry, I'd like to have an offer that I'd like to give on this, if it's okay with you, because I am a part of the Christian Financial Advisor Network. I can be contacted through CFAN, but I would like to give this opportunity for anybody out there that is receiving a Social Security benefit income and you are being taxed on it. And remember at the beginning I told you you can find out real quickly. Go look at your 1040 tax form. If there's a number in line 20A, that's how much Social Security you receive. If there's a number in line 20B, that's how much of your income is being taxed. And what I'd like to offer is if you contact me through the Christian Financial Advisors Network, we will give you, and you are on Social Security, receiving a Social Security income, we will give you a free tax review to show you how much taxes you could save.
That's very good. Well, and many people who are listening to this may not be familiar with the Christian Financial Advisor Network. Some of them may be. If you go to CFAN well, actually, I'm sorry, it's CFAN. It's CFAnetwork.org. I want to show you just how easy this is. I'm going to exit out of this, and I'm going to go over to the website itself, and you should be able to see my screen here. This is just the website. And what you do is you go to CFAnetwork.org, and you'll notice here that it says we're in 34 states. We may not be available in your state, but we're working on getting there. You see the button down here that says I need an advisor. You click on the button that says I need an advisor, and then it gives you 3 simple steps. It says carefully read our disclaimer, fill out the CFAN inquiry form, and then expect to be contacted by a Christian financial advisor within 3 business days. You read this, and then you say, okay, I'm ready to get started. You click that button. And then you read the disclaimer, and then you proceed to step 2. Basically, this just says that this is a free referral service, and if you want to be contacted by a Christian financial advisor, they'll put you in touch. John, what's nice about this is all of our advisors that are in this network are, we have real strict requirements. In fact, if you ever want to see our requirements, you can go here to act like you are an advisor, and you can see the kind of requirements we have. These are people who've been in the business for a long time, so they're not going to be calling you, bothering you, pestering you. You're basically going to get their time, and they're going to be spending time with you explaining things. And then here is the free online form. You simply fill out this form. So you fill out your name, Jerry. I'll show you how easy this is. Type in your name, Robinson, your age, and then your address. And then you just type that in, 123 South Main. And then you would say New York. If I could spell it right, and then we go, the zip code would be, I don't know, what's a good zip code for New York? That doesn't matter. And then we'll go phone number, and it says no dashes, so 918-555-1212. I'm just showing you how easy this is. Then you put your email in, the best contact information. Did you read the disclaimer? Yes. Best time to contact you. You're almost done. Morning. Your financial needs and interests. Are you looking for general financial planning, insurance planning, investment planning, retirement planning, and estate planning? You can pick any of those or all of those if you're looking for all of those. And then total amount of investable assets. We're not looking for an exact figure. Just kind of tell us, how much are you working with? Are you working with less than 50? That's okay if you are. Or maybe you're working with 100,000 to 250,000 or 500,000. Just select which one it is. And then there's this little image verification at the bottom. Just type in what you see, and then you hit submit. And as soon as you hit submit, I'll show you what it's going to do. Well, as soon as you hit submit, it's going to come back and say, you didn't fill it out right, Jerry. What a surprise. What did I do wrong here? Let's see. Oh, I didn't select this and I didn't select that. There we go, and I agree. Let's try that. Oh, didn't fill this out. Aren't these fun? It's like calling an 800 number and getting stuck on hold. Okay, submit. After we do that, it comes back and it says, thank you. Your contact information has been safely and successfully delivered to the CFAN office. Remember, you should expect to receive an email or phone call from a financial advisor within the next 3 business days. And then we also provide a phone number for support if you have any questions. This is one of the most easiest ways you can make a change if you want to get involved. Now, John is he's part of the Christian Financial Advisor Network. Tonight we brought you a sample of what we offer through the Christian Financial Advisor Network. Do you need strategies? Are you looking for a plan? Do you need a financial plan for retirement? Obviously, John or somebody like John is somebody that you need. Now, you may say, well, I really want John, but you live in California. Well, John doesn't cover California, so we would have somebody else that covers the state of California. But I would urge you, and listen, this isn't about, our network necessarily. This is just in general. Whatever you do, talk to somebody. Whether you use our network or whether you just make a phone call, talk to your father, brother, sister, and say, who do you trust? Who should I sit down with and talk about my finances? Our goal here at Follow the Money is to see you educated on the topic of finances and to create a financial plan that will last the test of time. So I think that with all that being said, John, it was really good to have you on the air. We covered quite a bit. I'm sure there's several questions, and I already see there's quite a few right here. Feel free to type in your questions, and we will certainly get to those. Let me take a look here. There are quite a few. John, you still around here for some questions?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. We have a question from, let's see here, D. D says, do you think the states that don't have a state income tax will be forced to implement state tax to meet expenses of supplemental benefits? One of the nice, attractive things about the state of Texas and others is that they don't have state income tax. And do you think that some of these states around the country may be moving towards that just to make up for, 5 states right now are basically bankrupt. We're facing some major state crises in budget deficits. What do you think? Do you think we're going to see some new state income taxes?
Well, I think it's real possible that we will, and not only that, but the states that have state income taxes, look at how quickly they're already going up in a lot of states. So, yeah, I think it's just the way the economy is right now. With all the spending that we're doing in order to provide all these benefits, they have to get paid from somewhere, and typically the taxpayers are the ones that are going to pay it. So, yeah, I believe state income taxes will probably be implemented at some point in all states, and the ones that already have it, which is the majority of them, it's just going to go higher because they're all running major deficits right now.
David asks a question, will we be giving a webinar on self-directed IRAs? Yes, David. We have a whole schedule this year for some really exciting and interesting webinars. One of them is going to be on self-directed IRAs. Next month, we have one coming out on the topic of energy. That one is going to be a very interesting one as well, because energy has some really, I mean, right now gold and silver have been the major things that we've been seeing, but I think as we move forward, energy is going to be a very interesting play. So Energy 101, what you should know, this will be a really important one, especially with the BP crisis that we've seen. I think we're going to see energy moving back towards the top of people's minds as gas prices begin to go back up. You'll want to be paying attention to energy next month for our webinar. We also have our Follow the Money Quarterly July issue. Those of you who are subscribed, quite a few of you here tonight are. Follow the Money Quarterly. We have 15 mind-blowing facts about China. These are some of the articles that will be in that upcoming issue next month. Should you consider opening up a foreign bank account? Foreclosing the faith, examining the alarming rate of church foreclosures, and are silver ETFs a safe investment? If you're interested in those type of topics, we have some great analysis in our quarterly newsletter called Follow the Money Quarterly. You can purchase that. It's available for sale on ftmdaily.com. And let's go back to our questions here and see what we have. We have a question from David that says, are ETFs good considering taxes and inflation? What's your view, John, of exchange-traded funds versus mutual funds versus all of these other types of funds?
Well, one of the things I do like about the ETFs is that it's more targeted. It's targeted to certain things, and I've always said it's a lot. I always feel like I'm better at being able to target a certain sector and know which sector is better than just trying to generally pick a mutual fund that has a broad range of investing. So I personally like ETFs.
Yeah, I do too. I think they're excellent, and they're great for trading as well. Some of you may have never traded before, and I think trading can be very good for your opportunity pool of capital. Sometimes when you want to have money that's on the side, money that you can lose, ETFs are excellent for that, for trading purposes. And there's obviously, you don't want to gamble any money that you can't afford to lose. But trading can be very good if you know what you're doing, and ETFs are one of the best things to use. I have a question here from Terry that says, I'm 63 years old, and I don't have any savings. Should I stop giving to my retirement plan at work and start the 15% savings plan? Terry, at 63 years old, I do believe that it is still important to have a 6-month liquid diversified savings. However, your most pressing thing right now is retirement. And so if you have a match at your company, maybe they're providing a 5 or 6% match on the money, as far as up to 5 or 6% of your contributions, I would always at least go to the match. But if you don't have any liquidity, if you don't have any safe capital that you can just go touch right now, then yeah, I think that's an imperative. Because if you lose your job, then you're going to have to take all your retirement money out just to pay your bills. So if you don't have any liquid cash, I would make that a priority. I wouldn't eliminate entirely your retirement savings plan, but I would cut it back probably to the match and get yourself some liquidity. That way you can manage in the event that you have an emergency that arises. Okay, let's go back to our questions here and see if we have anything else. All right, John, thank you very much. A lot of thank yous. People really enjoyed this tonight, John. I really appreciate you coming on. Stephen makes the comment that we should turn to Ecclesiastes 11, verse 2, which supports the statement about diversifying your assets. I have that right in front of me. Ecclesiastes verse 1 and 2 says, cast your bread upon the waters. After many days you'll find it again. Give portions to 7, yes to 8, for you do not know what disaster may come upon the land. And there's the logic. The logic is to cast your bread upon many waters. That's that idea of diversification. And giving it to 7 or even 8 different areas. There it is, diversification in 7 or 8 different ways, because you do not know what disaster may come upon the land. There it is. We don't know when the rules of the game will change. We don't know when things will change in different areas. And so diversification is so vital. It's one of the most important things you can do in your investments. John, any closing comments before we let the bring this to a close?
Really, I just want to add on to what you just said about diversification, because I think we also forget there's diversification of risk. You know, and what I mean by that is there are some investments or some things that you invest in where the value can go up or down. That's one type of risk. There's another type of risk where maybe you just take an interest rate, an earnings, and that's a different type of risk. And then there's a type of risk where you earn when the market goes up, but you don't lose anything when the market goes down. That's a different type of risk. So not only different things, but different risk types are important to make sure that you're looking. And you want to have the money that you cannot afford to lose in the lower two risk levels that I just talked about. The money that you can afford to lose, that's where you get into the things that can earn and lose with the market.
I like that.
Or other things.
All right. Well, and let me say this. John made an offer tonight to basically do a free tax review for those of you who are on Social Security. If you'd like to take him up on that offer, Sharon, I see your question there. If you'd like to take him up on that offer, here's the best way to do it. Simply call 918-827-2400 and say, I'd like to have the free tax review by John for my Social Security. Just call and ask for the free tax review, 918-827-2400, and call and ask for that free tax review. If you prefer, you can fill out online at cfanetwork.org. The only problem there is that if you're in a different state, we don't have an area there for you to describe exactly what it is that you're asking about. So the best way to do it is to send your message through phone, so 918-827-2400, or you can just contact us right here at FTM Daily. Just email me, jerry@ftmdaily.com, and say, I'd like to get that free tax review by John. John, thanks for that offer. That's a very good offer, and I appreciate that for offering that to our folks.
Oh, I tell you what, it's one of the biggest needs that people have is to learn how to reduce their taxes. Absolutely. And so we're more than happy to do that.
All right. Well, this is Jerry Robinson with Follow the Money Daily, and along with our good friend John Burrs, many of you who have been following us for some time, I want to make you aware that we do have a very exciting new Sunday webinar series coming up over at jrmi.org. If you go to jrmi.org and check out the front page, you'll see we have a brand new Sunday webinar series that's beginning in the month of August, every single Sunday evening, and it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be called Revisiting the Beginning. We'll be taking a look at Bible prophecy in the first 12 chapters of Genesis, very first books of the Bible. I think you're really going to enjoy that topic. So check out jrmi.org and check out the brand new webinar series every Sunday evening beginning in the month of August. All right. Well, John, again, thanks for being here, folks. I pray that you all have a fantastic week and a great weekend. And for this month at Follow the Money, God bless you, and thank you for tuning in. We'll look forward to talking to you through the radio show. Keep your comments coming in. Just shoot comments to me at jerry@ftmdaily.com. That's jerry@ftmdaily.com. Appreciate every one of you tonight. God bless you. Have a fantastic evening.